It kicked off with the sharp clink of overpriced glassware and a toast that sliced through the buzz like a knife. Danny Rivera, our CFO, champagne in hand, and master of smug leadership theater, raised her crystal flute with a smirk. "To the future," she said in that syrupy tone of hers. "And to finally shaking off the negativity. With risk out of the way, we can finally move fast." Laughter followed, thin, eager, desperate. Somebody from strategy even let out a cheer. I watched the champagne bubbles in my glass drift upward like tiny ghosts, then knocked back the last warm, flat sip. It reminded me of the applause echoing around the room. Empty, performative. I didn't say a word. Just set my glass down next to the compliance memo I'd tucked in my purse 3 hours earlier. The one Danny never bothered to read. And hey, if you're here listening, maybe clutching your seat or your last nerve, go ahead and tap that subscribe button and give this video a like. It seriously helps us keep these stories coming. Now let's get back to it. The party was one of those quarterly boost morale events. Open bar, suspicious sushi that probably broke a few health codes, and a DJ spinning 90s tracks like it was a joke. They'd rented some fake loft downtown, exposed brick, Edison bulbs, wall-to-wall mirrors. It was the kind of place that screams, "This isn't a company, it's a lifestyle." It smelled like desperation and artisanal deodorant. Danny floated from group to group, flashing smiles and handing out backpats like candy. You'd never guess that just 4 months earlier, she almost blew a vendor deal by forgetting to file a change order with legal. That mess got pinned on process gaps. My team was the process, and now we were the problem. They didn't even have the decency to tell me directly when I got shifted out of risk and moved into a so-called advisory-only role. I found out from a Slack channel called #ProjectSearch. Some intern posted a rocket gif with the caption, "No more breaks on this train." My name was gone from the call lists. My calendar cleared out overnight like it had finally let me go. I didn't push back. That's what really rattled people. No angry emails. No HR complaints. Just silence. And that kind of silence, it freaks people out more than any outburst ever could. My office turned into a ghost town. Danny's new risk light approach didn't even bother reassigning my projects. The tracker I'd built over 10 years of audits and late nights just sat there, untouched. Except by me. So when the party rolled around, I knew exactly what it was. Not a celebration, more like a wake. They were burying the version of this company that stood for discipline, structure, and accountability. The one that didn't throw vendor contracts into the wind and hope for the best. And they were doing it with dollar store sushi and empty catchphrases from people who'd never read our insurance protocols. Someone walked by with a tray of tuna tartare and gave me a wink. "Hey Mara," he said, lifting a tiny plastic fork. "Guess we're done with your mood-killing meetings, huh?" Laughter again. I gave him a polite nod. I could have asked if he even knew our third-party data policy had expired. But why ruin the vibe? I wandered over to the windows, where the music wasn't quite as loud. I stared out at the skyline, pretending to enjoy the view. But what I was really looking at was my own reflection. Still. Steady. The kind of calm that only comes once you've stopped trying to save people from their own bad decisions. Across the room, Danny was holding court like a TED Talk on too much caffeine, going off about velocity metrics and innovation tiers. I heard someone say, "She's a beast," and they meant it as a compliment. I almost laughed, because here's what nobody knew. I never actually stopped doing my job. I just stopped reminding them. Every missing signature, every skipped review, every auto-renewal someone thought was, set it and forget it. I had it all documented. Not in their system. In mine. Offline. Untouchable. And while they were clinking glasses and patting themselves on the back, I had already flagged the clause. Just one. That's all it would take. The clock had started ticking, and they had no idea. It didn't begin at that party, though. This had been brewing weeks earlier, before the toasts, the smiles, and whatever appetizer was currently trending on Instagram. There was no big announcement. No company-wide meeting. Just a quiet little change buried deep in an internal update. Risk sign-off was no longer required for expansion projects. They didn't say it was eliminated or even phased out. The wording, delegated where applicable, which is corporate for, sure, pee in the pool, just not near the ladder. The memo came straight from Danny's office, no doubt written by one of her grinning consultants who treat governance like it's a bad vibe at Coachella. They love throwing around nonsense like velocity, frictionless ops, and low-resistance implementation. What they really mean is, we're taking a gamble and praying no one notices until it blows up, and by then it's someone else's mess. By Monday, my calendar was a ghost town. Invites disappeared. Email threads dried up. A few kind folks forwarded me meeting notes now and then, usually with a "just FYI" in the subject line, like they were handing scraps to someone who used to run the kitchen. Then the HR form showed up. New title, Strategic Risk Advisor. No team. No vote. No seat at the compliance table. It wasn't a demotion, it was a quiet deletion. I didn't make a fuss. Instead, I printed out the reorg email and slipped it into the back of my old-school leather compliance binder at home. The kind of binder you don't accidentally misplace in the cloud. Because I knew, you don't cut the brakes unless you're planning to crash, or too clueless to realize one's coming. The next red flag came from Aisha, a junior project manager. She was still new, still believed in escalation protocols. She messaged me late one evening, after hours, which meant she was nervous. "Hey, quick question. Do we still have coverage on the search partner nodes? I can't find the 11B cert in the portal." I didn't answer right away. I pulled up my tracker. Policy 11B covered third-party data failover risks, especially important for accelerated partnerships. It was up for renewal that month. I'd flagged it in red 2 weeks before. I forwarded her question to Danny's new operations lead, attached the relevant doc, and wrote a short note. Relevant to Surge Initiative. See attached. No response. But the email was marked read. That was all I needed. 2 days later, Aisha replied to her own thread with a shrug emoji and a line that made my stomach sink. "All good. Leadership says no worries. Everything's under control, smiley face." Under control. That's corporate code for, don't ask again if you want to keep your job. I didn't message her back. I didn't raise the alarm. I just walked into my home office, opened my compliance map, and updated the tracker. Policy 11B. Renewal status. Unknown. Risk sign-off. Revoked. I timestamped it, printed a hard copy, filed it behind the divider next to the 2020 breach logs. The same year we almost lost a $5 million deal because someone tried to rush procurement without verifying cyber liability coverage. We dodged that one because I caught it in time. This time, I wasn't even on the invite list. So I watched from the outside as Project Surge gathered speed. Interns were leading vendor onboarding. The vendor itself? Some fly-by-night cloud startup with a logo that looked like a fidget spinner. Barely SOC 2 compliant. Their roadmap deck had more clip art than legal disclaimers. But Danny liked them. "They move fast," she said. "And they don't slow us down with paperwork." That was her favorite jab. Paperwork, as if careful review and due diligence were some kind of dead weight instead of the one thing keeping us from being sued into the Stone Age by Q2. They called it innovation. I called it malpractice dressed up with glitter. Every time I opened the dashboard, I saw more unchecked boxes, more approvals shoved through without the usual safeguards. Then one line jumped out at me. Risk acknowledgement waived by CFO directive. I took a screenshot, printed it, filed it. I didn't sound the alarm, not out of spite, but with purpose. If you shout into a storm too long, eventually no one hears you. But paper listens. Paper keeps score. I stopped showing up as often, and when I did, it was with my coffee in one hand and a clipboard in the other. I'd sit through meetings I wasn't allowed to weigh in on, nod politely, and take notes. Not for them, for me. They weren't removing me. They were repositioning me. And anyone who understands power knows, it's all about positioning. So I waited. Let the cracks grow. Let the noise rise. Because here's what they all forgot. It's not the crash that gets you. It's thinking you're flying. Watching them charge ahead was like seeing someone floor a sports car with the oil light flashing, and the engine held together with chewing gum and LinkedIn hype. The Zephyr Cloud deal got approved on a Friday naturally. Less time for legal to push back. It was the kind of partnership that came wrapped in buzzwords and blind optimism. Quantum encrypted failover. AI stabilized latency. Zero paper onboarding. Danny lit up like it was Christmas. No one asked how a barely 2-year-old startup from Tulsa planned to handle migrating 3 petabytes of sensitive client data. They just liked the aesthetics of the pitch deck. Legal got the message. Align, not obstruct. That's Danny's favorite line when she wants things rubber-stamped without the burden of actual accountability. I watched Greg, our in-house counsel, nod along, jotting down vague notes like conditional approval pending risk review. Except risk review never happened. Because risk was me. And I'd already been erased from the picture. The vendor integration kickoff happened in one of those cringe Zoom rooms. War room of I wasn't invited. Didn't matter. I still had access to the doc tree. Danny's new ops lead hadn't locked me out yet. Sloppy move. But useful. That Monday morning I logged in at 6 a.m. before system flags could update. I wasn't there to cause a mess. I wasn't laying traps or leaving warnings. I just wanted one clean mark. One final moment of clarity. I opened the compliance audit tracker and scrolled to section 4, vendor risk mapping. Subsection 11B. And there it was, empty. No renewal certificate. No signature. No start date. Just a neglected pending review note from 3 weeks earlier. I typed 3 words. Renewal pending unconfirmed. Then I added my credentials. Timestamped it. No alerts. No emails. Nothing loud. Just a single blinking dot buried in an internal spreadsheet no one cared about anymore. Then I removed myself from every shared folder tied to the project. Remove access? The system asked. Clicked yes. The system confirmed. No one noticed. I skipped the vendor launch call that afternoon. Instead, I sat in my office, packed 2 boxes with old files, and took my plaque off the wall. Certainty over speed. I left it on the desk. Not to make a statement. Just to leave a reminder. By Wednesday, ZephyrCloud was live. Emails flying. Onboarding kits sent to 6 different client teams. Developers were bragging about system boosts. Slack even had a new channel. #ZephyrHype. Someone made a meme of Danny wearing sunglasses with the caption, Fastlane CEO. She thought it was hilarious. She even hosted a virtual AMA, going on about cutting deadweight and how true innovation meant stepping over bureaucracy. When someone asked about insurance implications, she actually laughed and said, "That's why we have umbrella policies. Legal's got us covered." Legal, by the way, had already stopped showing up to the weekly syncs, said they were redundant. Meanwhile, I slipped a printed copy of that Slack thread into my offsite backup binder. Because me? I don't put my faith in umbrellas that haven't seen a single storm. They didn't realize it yet, but the moment they onboard that vendor without risk sign-off, without renewing 11B, without even checking the underwriter's appendix clause, they might as well have stepped out onto a frozen lake holding a flamethrower. And me? I was already standing on solid ground watching it all unfold. This wasn't about bitterness or disappointment. It was something colder, cleaner, detachment. I had done my job. They had undone it. Now the process could do what it always does, run its course. Like gravity. Like fire. Not vengeful. Just inevitable. The first crack didn't look like a crack. It came across as just another client complaint, minor, harmless. The kind of thing account managers usually smooth over with a coffee gift card and some fluff about roadmap alignment. The client was a mid-sized wealth management firm out of Denver. They'd been testing ZephyrCloud's integration for less than 2 days when they noticed something off. Access log inconsistencies, timestamp gaps, weird latency issues. Nothing massive. Just enough to make a compliance officer's eye twitch. They submitted a polite support ticket. "Hi team. Could you confirm the integrity of the migration logs between 1:17 a.m. and 1:52 a.m. Universal Time Coordinated? Looks like we lost some sync state." The vendor replied within the hour. "Likely a UI cache lag. All systems show green on our end, smiley face." That smiley face? Might as well have been a middle finger. When you're handling fiduciary grade data and your vendor's tossing emojis into their responses, you know you're no longer on the freeway. You're careening down some unlit back road with no brakes and no map. I wasn't copied on that thread, of course, but I still had eyes on the incident logs. Old habits die hard. And they hadn't stripped me from every admin channel. Not yet. Later that same day, DevOps logged 2 non-fatal failover events. That's internal speak for. The fire didn't hit the gas line yet. But the logs didn't line up. Failover node 2 activated on its own. without node 1A triggering first. In a mirrored system, that's not supposed to happen. One junior engineer flagged it in chat. Hey, is this supposed to flip without 1A first? Silence. Then a vague response. Looking into it. And that was the end of that thread. Dead by noon. Then came the email. Theo, a middle manager who means well but always looks like he's one calendar invite away from losing it, sent a short message to the old Leadership Ops Plus Risk Group. Legacy. Thread. Subject. Quick cue on third-party coverage. His message read, Hey all. Just wondering if we ever finalized coverage for third-party fail points under the Surge integration. Probably nothing, but saw a log mismatch. Want to be sure we're aligned. Fix. He ended it with a smiley face too. That one hit harder than the vendors. I opened the email. Read it once. Then again. Then I looked at the recipients. No replies. Not even an automated out of office. It was like shouting fire into the void. Could have stepped in. I could have replied, looped in legal, attached the right clause, dropped the audit log. But I didn't. Instead, I walked into the kitchen, poured a cup of coffee, and opened my personal laptop. I logged the moment. Policy 11B. Confirmed. No response to coverage inquiry. Then I printed the email. I added the email to the binder. Because by now, this wasn't about stopping anything. It was about documenting the fallout. I'd spent years acting as the safety net for a company that genuinely believed gravity was optional. I wrote the protocols they ignored, blocked fines they never even knew about, and shielded them from consequences they pretended didn't exist. And now? Now they were finally living their dream. Moving fast. Unshackled. Free from anything they could call negativity. I watched them fly past every stop sign, every caution light, every guardrail we'd ever built. And I knew like clockwork what was coming next. That heavy silence between the warning and the crash. The eerie calm right before the first domino falls. It hit on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that starts with lukewarm coffee, a full inbox, and that slow sinking feeling that you're about to be the one everyone blames. At exactly 9:14 a.m., alerts went off across the dev floor. 3 client environments dropped offline at once. Data vaults weren't just lagging. They were corrupted. Gone. By 9:16, a 4th client reported a full lockout. Then a 5th. Then 7. Legal was probably still sipping their cappuccinos when the real damage reports started flying in. Data loss. Broken transactions. One international client experienced a full rollback. 22 hours of records vanished into thin air. Their compliance team wasted no time. Letters were already going out. Breach of contract in bold print. Zephyr Cloud's incident response chat lit up with its usual brand of panic disguised as poise. Investigating with urgency. Initial assessment suggests minor fault in node synchronization. Translation: we have no clue and we're praying no one checks the logs too closely. No one messaged me directly. No frantic Slack DM. No emergency teams ping. Instead, I got a calendar invite. Subject line: policy reinstatement request, urgent. No hello. No explanation. Just one line in the message body. Please confirm if you still have access to Insurance Policy 11B, renewal materials. Need ASAP. Thanks. It was from Danny's assistant. Poor woman probably thought she was asking about a file, some form they just misplaced. She didn't realize she was asking about the last gasp of a dying system. I sat still. The only sound was the soft hum of the vent overhead. My cat stretched on the windowsill. Outside, a leaf blower droned like nothing was wrong. I clicked accept, then opened the binder. Flipped past the printed emails, the Slack screenshots, the flagged clauses and dated entries. There it was, Policy 11B. My handwriting on the cover page. Renewal status expired. As of October 12th. I pulled out the policy, highlighted the lapse clause, the one that said, very plainly, in the driest legalese possible, that data loss coverage would be void if the policy wasn't renewed before any triggering event. The date on the screen, November 4th. I made tea. Not out of smugness. Just routine. Because people always imagine collapse as some big, noisy disaster. Sirens. Yelling. Total meltdown. But real collapse? Real collapse is quiet. It's clinical. It's a heart monitor going flat in an empty room. Back at HQ, I could picture the chaos unraveling like a loose thread. Legal choking on fine print, account managers spinning up panic-soothing scripts, Danny screaming for answers from the very people she shut out, counting on insurance to bail them out, counting on coverage that no longer existed, counting on me to fix it. Then a follow-up message popped up. "Can we hop on a call in 10? I replied, "Yes. Bring the inspector." Then I shut my laptop. Because here's the truth about collapse. By the time you see the cracks, the foundation's already gone. He showed up looking exactly how you'd expect. Like he just stepped off a flight no one was happy to be on. Dark suit, insurance badge clipped to his belt loop. And that look. Equal parts tired and braced for disaster. His name was Calvin Price, but nobody called him that. Around here he was just the inspector. Like death with a clipboard. They led him into conference room C, the one with the fake ficus and the busted speakerphone that always dropped out at the worst possible moments. Danny was already seated when I walked in, trying to wear a confident smile. It looked more like a grimace. Her eyes darted around like she was searching for an emergency exit that didn't exist. "Thanks for making time," she said, using that tone people use when they've already picked out the person they plan to fire. Calvin didn't even blink. He set down his laptop, opened the insurance carrier's portal and said, flat as drywall, "Let's go straight to policy 11B. Danny nodded like she understood. "Of course. We just need to confirm that everything's in place. We may have had a little lag during the reorg, but the intent was always." He cut her off. "Intent doesn't trigger coverage. Signatures do." A few keystrokes later he turned the screen around. There it was. Clear as day. Unforgiving. Status. Expired. Last renewal. 10 of 12. Next due. 11/01. Renewal status. Not submitted. Risk officer sign off. Not applicable. Calvin leaned back in his chair. No drama. No scolding. Just that quiet kind of disappointment that says I've seen this before. And it ends badly. Danny stiffened. That can't be right. There must have been a breakdown with the admin team. Our assistant general counsel was supposed to. Your assistant general counsel doesn't have authority to execute risk-bound renewals, Calvin said. You do. I delegated that. To whom? Silence. Calvin turned to me. Ms. Jensen, were you formally or informally notified of any policy delegation? I looked him in the eye. No. I was removed from the approval chain 4 weeks ago. Then I slid the folder across the table. The one packed with every email, every log, every missed flag. Neatly organized. Time-stamped. Irrefutable. He opened it, flipped through a few pages and nodded once. Clear timeline, he said. Thank you. Danny tried to scramble. Okay, look, we get that there was a lapse. Calvin raised a hand. Not rude. Just final. Ms. Rivera, the clause in question subsection 5D. States explicitly that failure to renew prior to a data-impacting event results in forfeiture of claim. You signed the original. You removed the risk officer. You failed to renew. That's 3 instances of actionable negligence under the terms of your policy. I was told. She started, voice tight and climbing toward panic. You were told. Calvin echoed, folding his hands calmly. By whom? She blinked. Nothing. Calvin closed his laptop and stood. We'll issue a formal denial within the hour. I'll also be flagging this for underwriting. Your organization may face a reassessment of insurability moving forward. Silence swallowed the room. Danny looked like someone had pulled the gravity out from under her. Frozen. Speechless. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Calvin packed up his notes, gave me a small nod. The kind that quietly says you did your part and left. As the door clicked shut behind him, Danny finally breathed out. This is going to cost us millions, she whispered. More to herself than to me. I leaned back in my chair. Calm. Steady. Because for once, that cost wasn't mine to carry. The room smelled like old coffee and fear. Back in the present, everything was quieter now. The fake cheer that used to echo off the glass walls and glossy pitch decks had vanished, replaced by the rustling of paper, and the kind of silence that settles in when everyone's praying no one asks the one question they can't answer. But Calvin did. Who last had formal authority over Policy 11B? He didn't say it loud. He didn't have to. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. 3 people turned to look at Danny. One glanced at the door. She shifted in her seat. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. For the first time since she took the job, Danny Rivera looked small. That polished, self-assured energy she always carried, the kind that bordered on smug, was gone. What was left behind felt hollow, fragile. I believe that was transition to strategic oversight, she finally said, voice brittle like sugar glass. Calvin blinked slowly. There is no record of a reassignment form. Then he turned to me. Miss Jensen, can you confirm? I gave a single nod and opened my laptop. No clutter. No fluff. Just a clean interface and the spreadsheet I'd built myself years ago, because I never trusted tools made by people who thought compliance was optional. I scrolled to column G and found the line. Policy 11B. Third-party data coverage. Status. Renewal pending. Risk sign-off. Revoked per memo dated October 2nd. Final note. Flagged for expiration on October 12th. No renewal request received. I turned the screen to face the room, then reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. Same one I'd carried with me to the cocktail party. I slid it across the table slowly, paper whispering softly against wood, like an exhale. Inside, every email, every calendar removal, every policy log. Printouts from the internal audit system showing Danny manually revoked my signatory access without assigning a replacement. Every page stamped, every page ignored. Danny didn't reach for it. Her eyes landed on the cover page, then stopped on the timestamp beside my initials. The color drained from her face like a circuit shorting out. This wasn't escalated, she stammered. It was logged, I said simply. Per protocol. And you didn't think to override? I wasn't authorized, I replied. Per your restructure. No anger. No blame. Just the facts. Her facts. Calvin flipped through the binder with the quiet efficiency of a man who's done this 100 times. Every page. Every highlight. He paused briefly at the Slack printout where legal joked about paperwork purgatory. Then he closed the folder, straightened his tie and said, "Well, that's airtight." I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. Because this wasn't a win. It was a receipt. Danny let out a hard breath and pressed both palms to the table. We need to figure out next steps. Calvin lifted a hand. Not abrupt. Just final. Next steps are between your board and your insurers. This meeting is concluded. He stood. I shut my laptop. What followed wasn't silence out of awkwardness. It was recognition of what had happened and who had let it happen. I picked up the glass of water I'd poured at the start of the meeting. Still half full. Still untouched. I set it down again gently. Not for drama. For punctuation. The denial came the next morning. 8:07 a.m. sharp. An email so clean and cold it felt like a digital obituary. Subject. Final claim determination, Policy 11B. Just one sentence. No emotion. No apologies. No wiggle room. Due to non-renewal at the time of loss, coverage under Policy 11B is null. Legal went quiet first. Then Ops. Then Danny. By noon, the board released a formal statement. CFO Danielle Rivera was placed on administrative leave pending internal review, which is corporate speak for lawyers are coming. Don't touch your inbox. The same people who toasted her vision with overpriced Prosecco now couldn't even look her in the eye. The next morning, the board met behind closed doors. No mimosas this time. Just black coffee, short agendas, and even longer silences. The kind of silence that shows up after the crash, when everyone's trying to pretend they weren't the ones cheering during the acceleration. I sat at the end of the table, hands folded, notepad still closed. I wasn't there to speak. I was there to witness. The chairman cleared his throat and read straight from a prepared statement. We've completed a preliminary review of risk oversight concerning the failed policy renewal and resulting data loss incident. Ms. Jensen's audit trail has been deemed complete, consistent, and uninterrupted. He paused, then looked directly at me. We acknowledge a structural failure, not in documentation, but in executive priorities. Going forward, we view risk not as a checkpoint, but as a strategic partner. There was no apology. I hadn't asked for one. What followed wasn't dramatic. No applause. No fanfare. Just a motion passed unanimously. Effective immediately, I was reinstated. But not into risk. That department was already being dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up. My new title: Director of Strategic Integrity. No team. No middle management politics. Just one direct line straight to the board. No more answering to ops. No more deferring to finance. No more sitting 3 levels beneath decisions I used to prevent. No more shouting warnings into voids and hoping someone somewhere actually read the attachment. Now they bring the decisions to me. When the meeting wrapped, I didn't hang around. I shook hands. I thanked them. Then I stepped into a hallway that felt both familiar and completely different. On my new desk, 1 floor higher, glass door, no cubicle walls, was the binder. Someone had placed it there beside the nameplate. M. Jensen Strategic Integrity. No flowers. No welcome email. Just a desk. A skyline view. And the one thing I never needed permission to carry, the proof. I sat down, opened the binder, and slid in one final page. A printed copy of the claim denial. Then I closed it, placed it in the drawer, and locked it. No revenge. No celebration. No champagne. Just a quiet mark of permanence. Endurance, written in black ink. The conference room smells like new carpet. An old irony. It's orientation day for the new compliance hires. 6 of them, fresh resumes and clean slates, circled around a projector flashing a deck titled Building Forward. Risk as Strategic Edge. There's a tray of sandwiches. HR is handing out branded notebooks like participation trophies. On the wall, freshly mounted in matte black lettering, is a framed quote. Fast is fine. Blind isn't. No author. No credit. Just impact. The new hires don't know where it came from. Most assume it's from a leadership book or a podcast. No one asks. But I notice how their eyes linger on it a second longer than the rest of the slides. Like they can sense it wasn't meant as motivation, but as a warning. Down the hall, Calvin Price is finishing his final debrief. His laptop is shut, jacket folded over one arm. He's jotting something into a notebook. Probably the kind of phrase that becomes a footnote in an executive's termination file. We pass near the elevators. He doesn't stop. Just mutters, more to the air than to me, as he closes the folder. This is what fast and blind costs. He doesn't look at me. Doesn't need to. I keep walking. No pause. No celebration. Just motion. Because this wasn't a comeback. It wasn't a twist. Or a triumph. It was an outcome. The inevitable result of a system corroded by ego and speed. The cheers that once echoed after Danny's toast? Gone. Now they've been replaced by something quieter. Something sharper. Have you checked with strategic integrity yet? Some of the loudest voices have gone silent. One director quietly moved to another department. Another one pursued other opportunities. Danny's name hasn't been spoken in weeks. In the silence she left behind, people now send things to me without being asked. They add disclaimers to Slack threads. They tag me in policy discussions, not out of protocol but out of caution. They don't do it because they like me. They do it because they learned. On my new desk, tucked between the dual monitors and the high-back chair I never asked for, there's one item that doesn't match anything else in the room. A cheap cocktail glass. Slightly chipped. The same one from that party. It doesn't hold champagne anymore. Now it holds paper clips. A quiet reminder that nothing here really changed. Except who gets listened to. And why. I don't smile when I see it. I don't need to. They used to toast to speed. Now, they answer to document it. And I still have the receipts.